Everybody, David here. Good to be back with you. I have a very special guest with me, Ruth Almada. Who is Ruth? Well, she's a victim of generational curse, for one. And what kind of curse? It was mental, physical, emotional, sexual abuse from the time she was a small child. She discovered that the abuse went back for generations. And not only that, the abuse was now leaking into her family. And she decided she was going to do something about it. Ruth, are you there with me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
How are you?
I'm wonderful.
Okay.
But I've got to, if I may, I am no longer a victim. I am more than a conqueror in Christ Jesus, as is my whole family.
Amen. So she
Amen.
won't let me get away with that, folks. And I'm glad you threw that in there. You went from victim to victory, and
Yes,
I want to take now, Ruth. Listen, we talked about this. There are many people out there that are in this gathering that either have been victims or they're going through the process of being a victim. That's a horrible thing to think and say. Or they know someone who's going through it. And I'm praying that the words that we speak are God's words and is going to encourage and set people free tonight, okay? Now, Ruth, tell me, when did this abuse start? How old were you? And what was the abuse specifically?
The abuse started as far back as my memories would allow me to carry. Trauma has God give us this amazing ability to block out traumatic experiences as children. I believe it probably started around the age of 3 or 4.
Okay. What kind of abuse was it?
Physical, verbal, mental. I mean, you name it, sexual for sure, in almost every direction.
Okay. All right. So at this age, who would be doing that kind of abuse to you? Who was it?
Grandfathers, uncles, babysitters.
You said grandfathers, babysitters. Okay.
Uncles.
Okay. All right. So you had now you didn't, obviously you're 3 years old or 4 years old and they're abusing you. You didn't know at that time. How old were you when you went back and realized that you were 3 and 4 years old and you had been sexually and physically abused and emotionally abused?
I was in my 20s, and it was when I started to allow myself to process what had happened to me so that I could help my children with what had happened to them.
Oh, okay. I want to get into that, but I don't want to get into that right this moment.
Yes, sir.
So you had uncles, you had babysitters abusing you. Okay. Now, did you act out when you got older? Meaning, if you're 3, 4 years old, when you got into puberty, I mean, you weren't operating with the right. You didn't have the right luggage, did you?
Oh, not at all. I can say that I didn't per se do anything that I had been. I was definitely a complete disaster. My years of puberty.
Okay, so at what age were you sexually promiscuous?
That started around the age of 14.
Okay, 14. Okay, that's not that unusual. Usually with victims that have been abused, they either stay away from it or they get into it sometimes a lot earlier. So you mentioned at age 14, you got with your mother, and your mother did something with you. What was that?
She started talking to me about becoming making her a grandmother. She was the first person to give me drugs at that age, and just really taught me a whole bunch of very inappropriate sexual behaviors and mindsets.
Okay, so the fact she would do that, what you just told me, give you drugs at 14 years old, want you to be basically a child giving birth to a child, wouldn't that mean then that she had some type of sexual abuse going on in her life when she was young?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Was she sexually abused when she was
Yes,
young?
yes, sir. I found out later on that both my grandfathers were known to be pedophiles.
Okay. All right. Okay. And you think they laid that on your mother?
Oh, absolutely. And my father.
Okay. Okay. Now your mother and father come from two different set of grandparents, but don't comment on that because I got something I want to say about that. Okay. So let's talk about your mother's parents. Did you go back any further than that to see what?
Actually, no. Most of them have passed away. And
Okay.
when I presented a lot of this to family, I
Yeah.
got doors slammed in my face.
Was your mother a Christian? Or your father a
No, sir.
Christian?
No, sir.
Okay. So you were raised with no God in your house and no God in your life.
Yes, sir.
Okay. How old were you when you became a Christian?
I want to say I was around the age of 8. God bless the church bus driver,
He blessed.
because that's why. The guy who drove the church bus.
Okay. Okay. He told you about Christ?
He took me to church. That I didn't have to hear no.
Wow. Amazing. So you were 8 years old and you met the bus driver and he took you to church.
Yes, sir.
And you were 8. Did your mom want to know where you were, or did you tell her where you were?
No, there really wasn't ever any concern about our whereabouts throughout my childhood.
Okay. What part of the country did you grow up?
Central Texas.
Oh, Texas. Okay. All right. Okay. So, and on that note, I get a lot of people out of Texas. I happen to like Texas, but it seems like, do you believe that there's territories that have generational curses? Do you believe that there's?
I absolutely believe that there are very powerful principalities at work in specific locations in Texas concerning pedophilia and child sex abuse.
Okay. All right. Can you say what part of Texas? Like the region? You don't have to give me the exact town.
Just south of the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
Interesting. Wow. That's where President Kennedy was assassinated too.
Yes, sir.
That's where a lot of stuff was going on. A portal, you might say. Actually, I think they're putting the G5 in there too. But that's another.
Yes, sir.
That's another story. Okay. So you had twins. You were 17 years old. You
Yes,
got
sir.
pregnant, but it wasn't like you went out on a date and you ended up having sex or you got married. What happened to cause you to be pregnant?
Well, I was, of course, definitely promiscuous, doing everything wrong, confused, and found myself in a situation and didn't really realize that I was allowed to say no. I really didn't know that until several years later. And then found out that I was having twins, and so were all of my friends, by the same guy.
Okay. All right. So, I mean, would you say you were raped or he just
Yes,
manipulated?
sir. Yeah.
So you were raped. Okay. So
Yes,
you were
sir.
raped and you got pregnant. Now, you were a Christian. You'd given your life to the Lord, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. But how did you feel about this? I mean, where was God when you were pregnant now? Was he in your life? Were you talking to him or did you just kind of push him away?
I walked away from God because I did not know the things of God. I did not have examples. I made that decision, not really willingly, but unknowingly, and definitely suffered consequences for that. It was like I accepted Christ at the age of 8, but we moved and I didn't have an opportunity to go back to church. There was no input there, and I honestly had just walked away from it, at such a young age.
Yeah. So here's what you're struggling with. Correct me if I'm wrong, but because of the generational curse of probably the grandparents not knowing God, your parents not knowing God, and here God touched you and you found God, you were struggling. In other words, the demons didn't want you to have God and kept ripping you back. So that generational curse kept tugging back into your life. Is that
Yeah,
kind of...
absolutely. Absolutely. There's been a demonic assignment against my bloodline for a very long time.
Wow. And
yes.
tell me about that, the demonic assignment. You know what? I do want you to tell me, but I want you to tell me in the next segment because I want to get into the bloodline. Okay, so you had boys, little boys, and you twin boys, and you joined the Army. You were in the Army.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes,
Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Okay, so you took the boys and you gave them to a babysitter. Who was the babysitter of your boys?
It was their biological grandparents, and it was because I could not properly feed and support them at my age with zero family or support network myself.
Okay, wow. And so you found when your boys got older, because the grandparents had been taking care of them for years, your boys did something, because by that time you had a daughter, right? Your daughter was like 3 or 4 years old, and the boys were at how old? They were like 13 years old at this time?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. And you caught them doing something to or what happened?
Actually, my one of them that they had gotten in trouble at school. One of them had gotten in trouble at school, and I had my daughter with me, and she was kind of touching herself a little inappropriately. And I told her at that time, I was like, "Honey, don't do that. That's bad for your body." And I was like, "Well, I'm on that subject. She's old enough to understand." I said, "Don't let anyone else do that ever." And then that's when she told me what her brother had done, flipped my world upside down. That's when so many details of the past that never made any sense finally made perfect sense.
Okay, hang on one second.
Sure.
Your son, 13 years old, well, you had two sons. Are you telling me that your son or sons sexually molested your 3 or 4-year-old daughter?
Yes, sir.
Both sons or just one?
Well, I found out in January about one, and I found out later in December about his twin brother had done the same thing.
Wow. Okay, so here's the demons. Okay, I'm gonna say it's demons being passed down. The same demons working now on your children because they got a hold of you. They got a hold of your parents. Got a hold of your grandparents. Now they're working on your kids. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So when we come back, I want to talk to you about what you did about it. You had to make a decision if you were going to have your sons arrested, report them to the police, or if you were going to just, I don't know. When we come back, we're going to find out from Ruth what exactly she did about it. Stay with me. How would you like to be part of an exciting new faith-based television series? Hey everybody, I'm David Heavener, and I'm making The Last Evangelist. I call it CSI meets the Book of Revelation. We're in the end times, and people need to hear the truth. I'm asking you to partner with me. Go to lastevangelist.com, sign the newsletter. If God touches your heart, become a partner. Hey everybody, welcome to David Heavener TV. 7 channels of truth. And what are the 7 channels of truth? Well, in today's world where there's so much chaos and so much turmoil, and it seems the church has dropped the ball, we pick up on it. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for signing up, and God bless you.